Q's a unified commerce platform. I think our tagline is beyond POS. So I think if you really start to unpack that a little bit, what does that mean? Of course, we have the black plastic box on the countertop, right, as you would expect. But ultimately, Q is really a foundational data platform for mid-market and enterprise limited service chains. So specifically fast casual and quick service chains. And we focus on the commerce side of the business. We focus on take, make, and serve the order. So really anything that you need from, I call it digital plumbing, anything you need from a digital plumbing perspective to engage your guests and conduct transactions is where Q sits. The macroeconomic challenges, as well as the micro challenges today, are probably more diverse than ever. I think the restaurant industry is a very resilient industry. We all know that, right? It's what puts food proverbially on our table, right? But ultimately, today's area of sort of uncertainty is it's very challenging. And so you have headwinds from labor, cost of labor, turnover, you have supply chain challenges, tariffs. These things are all coming out of seemingly nowhere. Some have been growing up. Labor has continued to be something that we want to be smart about. But again, supply chain and things like that are much more recent. And so in that area of uncertainty, bringing some stability to the decision-making pieces of your business is incredibly important. And so what Q does is it really does act as that foundational layer. Again, not starting with the point of sale system and pretending that that's the center of your universe, or thinking that all of these data solar systems from online platforms to third parties to loyalty, et cetera, that all create their own data platforms, to think that they're all just going to seamlessly integrate flawlessly with one another and 100% of the time, it just doesn't happen that way. And so what we like to do to de-risk all of those challenges for enterprise restaurant chains is to focus on the data layer, a platform opportunity where you still have the ability to use those best-in-class solutions, but they sit on top of a uniform data platform. And when you do that, we give our customers the best shot at being able to be successful. Q addresses the challenge of integrating disparate systems in a number of different ways. First of all, we just use modern technology. And look, that's not a slight on the rest of our industry or other brands and businesses in our company. The reality is that some of those have been leaders for 10, 15, 20 plus years. And it's very, very difficult in technology, irrespective of the industry that you serve, to go back and fix things. It's just very hard. And so you end up accumulating technical debt, as we call it, over time. And you ultimately build a company around your technology platform, obviously. And so I always say that we have some foresight. I'll give ourselves some credit on using better, newer technologies and an architecture that really supports today's modern business. But ultimately, just using modern, clean API frameworks, having a data model underneath those APIs that has everything readily accessible. Again, I'll say this one twice, using modern technology and API frameworks. And so that ultimately creates a more resilient structure. And it does, quite frankly, our partners tell us on a regular basis, we have about 125 direct integrated partners. They tell us on a regular basis that they were able to integrate to us or with us much faster than they are able to with some of our peers, some of the other folks in the industry. And then those integrations themselves are also more resilient. And all of that just translates into more agility for our customers, our mutual customers, and more predictability between those integrations, better guest experiences and accuracy. Great question. Implementation processes from sort of sales engagement all the way through being finished, right? We have a lot of customers from 20 unit chains to 3,500 unit chains. And so the reality is that there's no silver bullet. There's no singular answer that says we can do X in Y timeframe. But what we do have is we have an entire process built from pre-sale through the sales engagement to the pilot process, to the post-pilot process, and the actual implementation itself. And what we do is we bring dedicated teams in, and the one that's probably most important, sits right in the middle there, is our Quest team. So that's our Q engagement services team. The Quest team is really the one that's responsible from, again, right before we get that opportunity signed and we start working together formally with our new customer, all the way through the pilot and planning the implementation project and putting those balls in motion so that we can really go and execute on the implementation itself. I'll use a recent case study. One of our customers is Golden Corral. And Golden Corral is a 357 unit casual dining chain. I told you earlier that we only focus on fast casual and quick serve, and I will tell you that Golden Corral fits the fast casual operational model, which is why we did it. We don't do full service. But that chain went from pilot to last store installed in 9.5 months. So pilot, through that process, creating the project, executing on that project, and installing the last restaurant, 357 in 9.5 months. What's unique about Q? I'd say certainly the first piece is our approach to data and our approach to this model that we're bringing to the industry, right? Thinking of it differently than thinking about the POS and a loyalty company and maybe a back office company and figuring out a better way to sort of stitch that mousetrap together. And look, there's a reality that that's going to work for a lot of operators. We're not the right solution for all operators, and not all operators are going to be best served by Q. But what we do is we think differently. That first piece, again, is unifying at the data model layer, that foundational platform layer. The next thing is what we're doing with edge computing. Edge computing, everybody's talking about it, right, across all industries, but people don't really know how it affects them or impacts them positively on a day-to-day basis. What we've done with our edge computing is we actually have a small compute device, an edge device that lives in the restaurant, and it replicates our exact same public cloud endpoints locally in the restaurant. Now, it doesn't have to take our entire cloud instance and bring it down into the restaurant. It just brings the things that are relevant, that increase resiliency and stability and speed to the services that operate within the four walls of the restaurant. And so with our edge device, and that's something that nobody else has in the restaurant industry today, at least where we sit. And so that, again, it's bringing better, deeper integrations into the four walls of the restaurant. We're able to do things with some of our voice AI partners and some of our loyalty partners that are really redefining what it can look like to engage with a point of sale system within the four walls of a restaurant. And the last one I'd say is, because of that foundational data model, what we're able to implement faster and more predictably through the lens of AI is something that's very unique to Q. I mentioned earlier that most big platforms have different data solar systems that they try to stitch together through APIs. And that's a path that most companies go. And quite frankly, it can work, but it has its challenges. When you have a singular foundational data layer, and that data is actionable for AI, which is something nobody's talking about, just because you have a lot of data doesn't mean you can empower it through AI. Since that singular data layer is impacted and able to be extracted through AI, we're able to get to a place with AI on all of our different customer journey and customer endpoints. We think that AI and our foundational platform is going to be another real significant innovator and differentiator for Q.